Good morning on this snowy Sunday, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Danbury. I'm Nancy Hirschadder. I've been a member since 2009. I've been co-producer of Music at the Ridge since 2022, and part of the Sunday Services Committee for longer than I can remember. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I'm so very glad you were able to join us online this morning. Each of you is an essential part of our celebration today. Whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, in person or online, we are stronger because you are with us. As we gather this morning, we respectfully acknowledge that our physical building is on the traditional unceded land of the Pauguasset people, and we are working hard to further our relationship with the Pauguasset tribe and support them. We're not going to wave across the room at our neighbors. You can smile at the screen. Okay. Sorry. Okay, please join me in the words of our chalice lighting affirmation. And on mute. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and justice is its light. This is our covenant.
To dwell together
in peace. Dale, mute yourselves. This is our covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek and speak the truth in love, to help one another, and to celebrate life.
Announcement.
Yes. Okay, thank you. In the order of service, you can read all about what's happening this week. Monday is Chalice Circle, Safer Congregation Ministry. Wednesday is Family Ministry. Next weekend, Reverend Tony will be in the pulpit, hospicing modernity and creating a future with love at the center. You can also read all about the Connecticut UU Social Justice Ministry, thanks to the efforts of Sierra Marie and Margaret Henderson, looking for more powerful ways and to make a bigger difference together. Okay. And then, of course, there's information in the order of service about tabling, which we are not doing today. But we're going to table that one for now. Other announcements are in your order of service.
And a special announcement. There is a national call for clergy to go to Minneapolis at the end of the coming week. Reverend Tony and I are hoping that one or the other or both of us will be able to go. And even if you can't go, many of our beloved colleagues will be there. So I'd like to invite those of you who'd like to send your love, witness, and solidarity to let me know in the chat or by email, and I will be writing your names on fabric or ribbon that can be attached to clergy stoles. Again, if you'd like your name carried in witness, love, and solidarity for the people of Minneapolis, just let me know. In Minnesota, just let me know.
All right. And now it's time for the hymn of welcome.
This is my song, O God of all the nations, a song of peace for lands afar and wide.
And now we will say our unison children's affirmation. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are people with open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. We care for the earth and each other.
And I'm just waiting for our story screen to come up. There we go. We've got Swimmy today, a great classic book. A happy school of little fish lived in the corner of the sea somewhere. They were all red. Only one of them was black as a mussel shell. He swam faster than his brothers and sisters. His name was Swimmy. One bad day, a tuna fish, swift, fierce, and very hungry, came darting through the waves. In one gulp, he swallowed all the little red fish. Only Swimmy escaped. He swam away in the deep, wet world. He was scared, lonely, and very sad. But the sea was full of wonderful creatures, and as he swam from marvel to marvel, Swimmy was happy again. He saw a Medusa made of rainbow jelly, a lobster who walked about like a water-moving machine, strange fish pulled by an invisible thread, a forest of seaweed growing from sugar candy rocks, an eel whose tail was almost too far away to remember, and sea anemones who looked like pink palm trees swaying in the wind. Then, hidden in the dark shade of rocks and weeds, he saw a school of little fish just like his own. "Let's go and swim and play and see things," he said happily. "We can't," said the little red fish. "The big fish will eat us all." "But you can't just lie there," said Swimmy. "We must think of something." Swimmy thought and thought and thought. Then suddenly he said, "I have it. We're going to all swim together like the biggest fish in the sea." He taught them to swim close together, each in his own place. And when they had learned to swim like one giant fish, he said, "I'll be the eye." And so they swam in the cool morning water and in the midday sun and chased the big fish away. So ends the story.
Yes, I know I need to unmute. Please join me in singing This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. And now if you will put your milestones in the chat. I am in our energy to the work of this congregation. When we donate to its financial support, we're giving gifts to one another. Each one of us gives to and receives gifts from all of our members and friends. Together, we give to the community around us. To make your gift this morning, we use the link or QR code posted in the chat or projected on the screen. You may also send a check to UUCD. I thought I was the only one that writes checks anymore, but apparently not. You may also mail a check to UUCD at 24 Clapperwood Road in Danbury, and thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. So I'm going to back us up just a little bit and do our reading. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And this reading is from Letter from Birmingham Jail from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. As I'm sure you all know, Martin Luther King Day is tomorrow, so I feel like I would be remiss not to choose some of his words. So I must confess that over the past few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens' counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. And from the same writing, there's also injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. So today, I wanted to start with a story from my time while I was in Iraq. And it begins with a road. It was just a stretch of packed dirt just outside our base in Iraq. It was dusty, unremarkable. It was a road I'd traveled 100 times before. I knew every curve, every checkpoint, every shadow where danger might hide, but usually didn't. That night, I was the rear turret gunner in our convoy, coming home after a 16-hour mission. I was exhausted. My body was alert, but my mind had really slipped into something like autopilot. So if you've ever driven home late at night and suddenly realize you don't remember the last 10 miles, you know the feeling. And as we were just getting ready to pull into the last turn before our base to be being done for the night, I could see a car pulling up in the distance in the dark. It was coming a little faster than I would have expected. Usually, people knew to kind of avoid the convoys because we were always worried about vehicle-borne IEDs. But this car kept coming. I was watching the headlights get, closer and closer. And protocol there says that I should have initiated, escalation of force procedures, their signals, warnings, and preparation for deadly action if necessary. That was my job, and that was what I had trained to do. But in that moment, I didn't. I just watched. I expected the car to stop. I wanted it to stop, and we had done this a million times, and I wanted things to just be normal. Sorry. I wanted this road to be the same safe, familiar road it had always been. And fortunately, at the last second, the car swerved away. I never fired. Nobody died. So thank God, right? The people in that car are probably just tired and distracted and trying to get home the same as I was, are still alive, and so am I. And that's one of the, honestly, few things from my time there that I can say that I'm proud of, kind of unequivocally. But that moment haunted me for years, not because of what I did, but because of what I didn't do and what could have happened. So I let my belief in normalcy kind of override what I, had really real reason to believe was a threat, and that inaction could have killed me and everyone else in that truck. And there's a name for what happened to me that night. It's normalcy bias, which is the human tendency to assume that because something has always been a certain way, it will continue to be that way, even when evidence says otherwise. So what normalcy bias tells us is that what we're seeing isn't really happening, or it can't be that bad, or someone else is going to step in and work it out. It will all be okay. And that normalcy bias is comforting. It keeps us from panic. It helps us kind of get through the day in difficult situations, but it can also be deadly. I thought about that road a lot in recent years, not because I miss the war, but because I recognize that feeling in what I'm seeing today from a lot of people. I hear it when, respected, reasonable voices tell us that the courts are going to stop the worst abuses. The system's going to correct itself. This is just rhetoric. January 6th was a fluke. We've survived worse, whatever it is. And to me, that's clinging to this idea of a system that no longer matches reality. They're trusting the road because it's always led them home before. But sometimes the road changes while we're still driving on it. If you think of the first excerpt from the readings, the white moderate that Dr. King wrote about is the same one clinging to normalcy, waiting for a system designed for injustice to produce justice. But Dr. King also reminds us that we're caught in this inescapable network of mutuality, tied on a single garment of destiny. The only way to face these moments is with clear eyes in community. So if you look at how the civil rights movement grew out of Black churches, these were people already in community who could acknowledge what they were facing together. So we're living through a moment now of rising authoritarianism in this country. And that's not hyperbole or alarmism. It's a description supported by the evidence. The erosion of voting rights, politicization of the courts, normalization of political violence, the targeting of marginalized communities, and the open rejection of democratic outcomes. And yet so many people are still looking away, despite what we're seeing as like rising numbers of people actually engaging. But there's still plenty waiting for this to go away. Normalcy bias again. Denial feels safer than action. These familiar routines feel safer than disruption. Trusting the system feels easier than accepting that that system may no longer be protecting us, or that it never did. But that denial isn't going to protect us. One of the things that helped me to forgive myself for that night in Iraq was realizing something important. I was unusually alone in that moment. So, my time in the Army, almost all of the time, you have people just all around you, people watching your back, everything's covered. And you just have your one little part to play there. But this night, it's, my driver was focused on the road. My platoon sergeant was the only other person in the truck. He was sleeping. I didn't, being the rear truck, just like on a straight convoy, I didn't have that usual kind of web of, fellow soldiers watching my back with like, overlapping places they're watching. It was just me. So I was used to having this whole team around me, kind of double checking my instincts, grounding me in this shared responsibility, and making sure that, when someone does have a moment where you, maybe like are not responding the way that you would want, you have other people there to help you to do that or to do it in your place. But that night, it was basically just me. That disconnection made me vulnerable. Like normalcy bias thrives in isolation. And that insight's stayed with me because the antidote to normalcy bias isn't fear, it's community. When we're connected, truly connected to each other, we can see more clearly. We borrow courage from one another and we notice what others might miss. And we don't act just as individuals, but as a one body. And similar to what we saw in the book Swimming, right? And that's a truth that's embedded deeply in Unitarian Universalism. Our first principle affirms the inherent worth and dignity of every individual, but our seventh reminds us that none of us exists alone, right? We're bound in an interdependent web of existence. And that interdependence is moral, it's political, it's spiritual, it's something that we build together. And when we are working towards justice, we do it for everybody and we do it with everybody. So no one should have to face these rising threats alone. Not a soldier on a dark road, not a protester out in Minneapolis, not just the entire country in a democracy under strain. It's not something that we can face alone. As an organizer, I've learned that change doesn't come from waiting for institutions to suddenly rediscover their conscience, right? It comes from people building power together through mutual aid, through public witness, through showing up for one another in concrete ways. And more people are waking up to the realization that they were sold this kind of comforting myth that the law is neutral, that courts are above politics, that checks and balances are self-executing, and that democracy is inevitable. They're not waking up just out of fear, but out of clarity. And some of that comes from seeing others express it and express it together. So when people wake up together, something really remarkable can happen. The anxiety that you feel can turn into resolve. And then isolation turns into solidarity, and normalcy bias starts to lose its grip. So the question before us isn't whether we feel afraid. The question is how we'll face this moment. Will we go it alone, or will we come together? So Miriam Kaba, the organizer who inspired the title of this talk, says that hope is a discipline. And I would add that finding that discipline to maintain hope in our future is a lot easier in community. Courage doesn't mean certainty. It means choosing relationship over retreat, and action over apathy, and love over denial. The road ahead might be unfamiliar. It's going to require us to break routines, to speak when it'll be easier to stay quiet, and to organize when it'll be easier to trust that someone else will do it. But we're not alone. We're watching each other's backs, and that, more than any system, any court, any promise of normalcy is where our hope truly lies. So the full quote for the title of this service is, for the quote that the service is based on, is "Let this radicalize you rather than lead you to despair." Alone, it is easier to despair in our current situation. Before we can find the strength to resist, we need to find our people so that we can face it together and have the support needed to really see what is going on. So some members of this congregation have been protesting every weekend in Bedford for the last year. Others are working with Danbury Unites for Immigrants. Others are connected with Mutual Aid, for instance. So many different ways that people are getting involved. And I think if you speak to those people, you'll find that in addition to the actual contributions that they're making, they'd say the connections they've made with other people in these acts of resistance have been as important as the actual resistance itself. And this is how we sustain ourselves during dark times. So when we leave this service today, something that I hope for all of us is that we have the courage to see clearly, and that we can resist the comfort of denial. And may we remember that the strongest defense against rising danger is a community that refuses to look away or to leave their neighbors behind, and does all of it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Can you join me, please, in the words of extinguishing our chalice? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. And now our hymn of celebration, Blue Boat Home.
Lonely, lonely, I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel. voice of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, and the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
So for a final reflection, I had asked that over the next week, we reflect on the areas where we may be hiding behind normalcy bias. Honestly, that should feel uncomfortable. That's not to say you need to fix the problems that you're avoiding, but we have to start by acknowledging the problem. So the first step to finding our people who see the same problems is actually seeing them ourselves. It's not easy, but we have an incredible community here. So I hope that we can all continue to reflect and think about all of the ways that we can come together and the ways that we can bring others in and continue to make this country and this world a better place despite um, dark times currently. There still is hope. Again, hope was a discipline, but it's worth it.
That runs this whole meeting.